Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fetch YouTube channel. Today, I'm joined by Joshua, who recently came top 32 in the Oceania OP07 online regional, and he actually also came top 32 in last week's EB01 Treasure Cup. So, congratulations, Josh. How are you feeling?
Thank you. I'm feeling great actually. I'm really enjoying this Yamato list.
Do you remember your matchups from the OP07 tournament?
The OP07 tournament, I played into 4 Enel, 3 Red Purple Law, and 2 Lucci. So I only played 3 different decks, but I played them a bunch.
How did you find that NL matchup? Because isn't that your hardest matchup?
You would think so, but I actually went 4-0 into all of the Enels, and last week I
Wow.
went 2-0 into both Enels that I played again. So
Mm.
it's not too bad of a matchup if you kind of play it right, I suppose. It revolves more around focusing on trying to get cards out of their hand, which I know that's kind of what every deck is trying to do into an L for the most part, but
Mhm.
it is like really relying on your own Namis
Mm.
to get the banish double swing in. So into an L, I'll often try to build a board with things like Kikunojo and Nikomamushi, also pressuring with my leader swing. So I'll try and leave them at 2 life, and then every swing with my leader, even if it's just a 5, they kind of have to counter it because they're threatened by a bigger Kikunojo swing.
Mhm.
And as they develop their board, because they're typically only playing one thing per turn, whether it be a Gadatsu or a Katakuri or something I try and do is I will play out a Hody Jones, resting the thing they just played, and then I'll just swing into the thing, and I try and clear their
Mm.
board. So I'm looking to go second in that matchup because I can start out by searching with Otama or searching with Momonosuke, and then on my forward on turn I'll just swing 5, which if they take, they go down to 2 life, and then I can play Kiku Nojo, which they then can't deal with. And even if they get out to it, I'll gain a life and then get a free Hody because there's no real drawback to taking my life when I have so many.
Right.
In one of my matchups, actually, someone was trying to stab me. They weren't swinging me at all, and I got to 7 life at one point. Uh, yeah, I know. But the 7 life was because they cleared a Kikunojo, and something else was the main combo of this deck is playing Otama, playing Hiyori, resting both with You Can Be My Samurai to draw 2 cards, and then using Momonosuke to put their
To
Otama
heal.
into life, which overall goes neutral in hand. You gain life, and you gain a 6k blocker, which is
Yeah.
just an insane thing to
Yeah.
do
And how many draws is
for
that? So
6
that's
dots.
one.
So
Yeah,
you
that's
draw one
one.
off the Otama,
Yeah.
you play down the Hiyori, you play You Can Be My Samurai, which then draws 2 more, which makes 3, and then you Hiyori effect to trash it to play out the Momonosuke, which you get a draw off the Hiyori as well. So that's 4 cards you draw, and you gain the Otama into life, and you gain the blocker Momonosuke out. So you played
That's
4
insane
cards, get
value.
4 cards back into hand, and plus hard. And Nell doesn't really have a way to deal with you having a big hand and a decent sized blocker. Like, they don't really have big surprise wins, like big rush
Hmm.
cards. They do have 10 cost ace, obviously, and 7 cost Nell. Most people had looked like they had cut the 7 cost Nell since last set, so that wasn't
Mm.
much of a problem. Basically, I'm trying to develop my board, and I try to leave them at 2 life, use my Onami efficiently to banish them, and
Mm.
just develop a big board while clearing theirs with Hody Jones, and then they can't
Right.
deal with the Hody.
But how about with like the RP Law matchup or the Lucci matchup where they have so much removal and it's hard to build the board? What's your kind of game plan around that?
Into RP lore, I'll be honest, it's mostly just rest their stuff and swing past. Like, if you go first, you swing 8 on your 3 don turn, they'll probably take, then they'll play a blocker, and then you could potentially rest with an ISO or the new card from this set, which is the Blaze Slice, which is if your opponent
Mm.
has 2 or less life, you rest a 4 cost and give your leader or something plus 1k. And so you can pressure them quite heavily, but that's not necessarily the only thing that you have to do, because for the most part, once they're at 2 life, you can kind of slow the game down. You can start using your combo to heal and gain card advantage. So with Red Purple Law, if they're forced to develop blockers and develop like 1 or 2 blockers just to try and feel safe, that limits the amount of swings that they can actually pressure you with. And
Right.
so when you're not feeling quite as aggressed on because you're like the aggressor, this Yamato list doesn't quite play as most would, which will probably make
Hmm.
more sense once we get into the deck profile part, because it doesn't run any top end, no 9 cost Zoro, no 10 cost Doflamingo.
Mm.
Its only high end is the Hody Jones,
Oh,
which
okay.
might then immediately make it seem like it's very straightforward. It's just trying to swing you, trying to press you, it's trying to kill you as fast as it can, but it's really not. It's trying to use Yamato's inherent kill pressure just with double attack and Hody Jones resting two things, swinging 10k with the leader ability to trip up your opponent.
Right.
Because for the most part, people aren't. I want to
You
say
good,
people
man?
aren't like ready for it to slow down, but like people are also very ready for Fortress Yamato, and so it's tough.
So is what you're trying to say is they expect a lot of pressure because of the double swing and they're quite hesitant at it. But then also they don't know when that pace will change because they're waiting for like an 8 cost kid for everything
Yeah,
to just immediately slow down.
yeah. So the threat of Hody Jones, just the threat of it, making them have to have either three blockers out or no blockers or one blocker or a bunch of counter in hand. Just the
Mm,
threat of Hody Jones is sort of enough to make your opponent not play weird, but they're forced to play in a different style because if you have it,
yeah,
it will change the game. And
for
in
sure.
saying that, you do see it very very consistently because of how much the deck draws, just
Mm.
based off of the "You Can Be My Samurai."
I mean, speaking of the deck profile, do you just want to get into it?
Well, I'll start with just the combo then, which is you run four of the new Wano Searcher Otama, which has really just unlocked this playstyle to like a better extent. I did play it last
Hmm.
set. It was a little bit more jank, but it still worked out.
Hmm.
You run the four Hiyori, which again is, well, I'll just get to this. You run four of each of the combo pieces, which is the You Can Be My Samurai and Momonosuke and Hiyori. Last set, I ran three of the You Can Be My Samurai, which you might think you can cut down, but you're actually very limited on the green Land of Wano cards that you can run because Otama
Mm,
only searches for green Land of Wano specifically.
that makes
Then
sense.
moving on to 2K counters, I run three of the 2K counter Hiyori that sorts out your life.
Hmm.
Four ISO, because again, it's a searchable target. It's great when you're trying to play aggressive. If you do get them down to zero life, a very good turn is to put, and they have three blockers out. You can play Hody Jones, rest two of the bigger blockers, and then you can play ISO to rest the third blocker,
Mm,
and then swing 10k through with the Hody and another five with leader.
chief.
I actually run three Mihawk 2k counter,
Okay.
which is probably the difference in most Yamato decks compared to this one, because this one is running a. It's trying to control board, right? Not in normal ways that control would, but it's based around how Hody Jones can be used extremely offensively, but also
Hmm.
you can just rest their things, swing with leader for double attack, which they would have to counter because otherwise you're swinging huge with the Hody. And then you can just use
Hmm.
the Hody just to swing at the characters because they've
Yeah,
just
of
dropped
course.
a bunch of cards from hand for an 8k swing from leader, or even just a 7 if you're on 9 Don. And then the Hody just
Of
gets free
course.
reign over characters,
Yeah.
which is how I deal with the Enel matchup. Because, yeah, which because of the three Mihawks, I run four Kiku Nojo,
Hmm.
which is fantastic into the Lucci matchup because they do not have a nice way to clear it. And if they do, you're like, cool, I'm just gaining a life
Yeah, of
and
course.
delaying this game, which might be beneficial for them, but they're slowly dropping cards in hand as you swing every turn. Even if you're just swinging 5k every turn, they have to drop a card because they can't just drop two life.
Yeah, of
Two
course.
Nikomamushi, which is mainly just for ratios of things to play off of the Mihawk.
Yep.
I was thinking about Mihawk at two, and that's what I used to have. I used to have Mihawk at two and four Hiyori, but I really liked the added pressure, especially even going into Red Purple Law. If you go first, if you didn't want to swing eight, you can play Mihawk into Kikunojo, developing two bodies, and then
Mm.
they aren't able to clear both. Nikomamushi is because triggering a body out from your life is insane. It's very, very
Hmm.
good. Because this could be the Event Pack 3 Zoro that's also Wano, which has a trigger
Yeah.
of KO or 4 cost release. But
Wow.
I valued the triggering out playing the card more than KOing a 4 cost. Then I run 3 Onami, which I admittedly would boost up to a 4, or I'd bump it up to a 4, just because it might have been because I played into 4 NLs, but this card went very well for me across the day. I obviously run 4 Hody because, well, like I said, I don't run any other top end, and so this is the most important card in the deck. Uh, Actually, I will be honest, most cards in this deck I go like, it's actually really, really good, but it
Yeah.
is it is the only reason that you can kind of play Yamato, so
Makes
I
sense.
can't sell that too short. I run 4 Momonosuke Searcher. It's just a Wano Searcher. It can find the 5 cost Momonosuke that the Otama can't,
Hmm.
because Otama can only take green Wano cards. It actually can't find this piece.
Yeah.
I
Interesting.
run
True.
2 Mountain God
Hmm.
because I want more green Wano cards to search, because without it, it would only be 16 targets, and that feels a little bit scary for whiffing. But also, the Mountain God is very good into the Red Purple Law matchup,
Yeah.
because if you're forced to go second, they could play a Shariah on 3 Don, and when they've got a Shariah out, there's no reason to swing bigger than 5 because they can always just block in 1k. So you
Yeah.
can swing 5, and then you can play out a Hiyori and play out the Mountain God off of the Hiyori,
Hmm.
which then, being a 7k stat line, is very difficult for Red Purple Law to remove.
They have to commit 2
Um,
cards to get rid of it,
yeah,
pretty
they have
much.
to commit two cards, and they're already card pressured because I'm going to be swinging every turn that they feel like they have to counter. And then for my events, I run 2. You're the one who should disappear. This could be a 3. It's great to put there when you've got with a Hiyori. A great 8-turn play or late game play is, if you're at 1 life, you can play Hiyori, take the life, put a 0 cost event in, and then
Hmm.
combo off with the Hiyori instead of the Otama. So you then play Hiyori, the other
Mm.
Hiyori. You
Yeah.
can be my
Yeah.
samurai, draw a card, Hiyori effect, play out the Momo, put the Hiyori into life on top. Then you've got 2 life, a blocker, and a 0 cost event sitting at the bottom of your life. And so you're
Yeah. That's
incredibly
crazy.
safe at that point. And you've
Hmm.
just drawn about 4 cards. So, and then the thing from this set, I run 3 Blaze Slice,
Yes.
which I am thinking of cutting down to a 2. I'm thinking of putting this to the Onami
Mm.
and just running it at a 2. It's able to be played as a main and a counter, which is incredibly helpful into Red Purple Law, because most of their swings are going to be 5Ks, or at least they're going very wide, and so being plus 1K for the turn on their turn is
Hmm.
very helpful. It's very, very helpful. And that's why I was running it at 3. Yeah, and that's the deck list.
Wow, that is quite different from like I
Yeah.
guess like the Wano Samurai build that we've been seeing. Um, Actually, for a black yellow Luffy matchup, the
Oh,
leader
yes. Yeah, yeah, yep. Yes, yes,
can
yes.
go to like 9k, 11k. How what's your
Yeah.
general strategy for that? Because I noticed you don't play the Secret Zoro.
Yes. The reason I don't play the Secret Zara is because I tried it into the Enel matchup, and then they just Rygoed it, and that felt awful. So I was
Yep,
just
yep.
thinking, like, it's not as helpful for that, even though being able to Anami it is insane value. But
Hmm.
into Black Yellow Luffy, I play it similarly to Enel. I get a body out earlier, I swing them down to 2 life with my leader, and
Hmm.
then with them sitting at 2 life and me having a body on board, if I swing with lead, they're not allowed to take down to 0 life
Yeah,
because of the threat of a giant swing with the body.
yeah, of course.
Um,
Oh, okay.
and when they Sabo early on, I look to Hody, rest their blockers, swing with lead because they, again, still have to counter that, because otherwise the Hody will swing for game. And then
Hmm.
I just swing into their blockers, which, although they can get it back out from trash, it delays them. It feels bad for them. And so it's just the stick into most matchups is looking at how many cards your opponent has in hand, what can they do, what feels bad for them. Does it feel bad for them to counter onto one of their characters? Do they get
Hmm.
punished if they do that? Admittedly, I only played into 1 Black Yellow Luffy last week, and
Hmm.
none this week, but I think it's a
Yeah.
very manageable matchup.
I mean, for you to play just like 4 NL, is pretty
Yeah,
wild. Oh man, that's really cool. And actually, one last question for me: why Yamato?
great question. Actually, I wanted to play into the meta. I always actually no. The reason is because you can be my samurai in OP01. I thought this card was insane, but it never had
Mm,
a deck that actually made it work. And then I saw that in OP07 a Yamato build was actually running it, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And so for the last since like OP06, I was saying that I was going to play Yamato in OP07, but I didn't fully believe myself. I thought it was going to be a meme, uh, but it turned out to actually have a really good deck list. And
yeah.
actually, really quickly, for the Bonnie matchup, this
Oh
deck
yeah.
gets absolutely destroyed. I'll be completely honest. This is awful into Bonnie.
Yeah, yeah. Just because
I
everything gets
can't deal
rested.
with 8 cost kid for the most
Yeah.
part. There are ways around it, which is you play the Hody Jones before they get 8 cost kid out, and you have to clear their blockers, and then you use the Hody
Hmm.
to swing into the kid, and you're
Hmm.
playing how many cards can they have in hand. But it's a
Mm-hmm.
very
Makes
uphill
sense.
battle. I
Yeah.
tested the 9 Zoro into it, and what I found was if I play it, if they on the next turn play one in response, just the same card, I
Mm.
still am on the back foot because I feel like I
Yeah.
can't swing with mine because they'll swing into it, and it's just a scary matchup. My 2 losses last week in OPO in EBO1 were both to Uta for the same reason.
Yep.
However,
Yep.
I thought one was a close game and one was not a close game. They won with 5 life. Like it's a
Oh,
very
jeez.
uphill battle.
Hmm.
It's a very uphill battle. But I think it does well into or I actually think into the rest of the meta, and so it's a risk that I'm willing to take.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you didn't see it in the weekend, right?
That is true. I got a little bit lucky.
Oh, awesome. Thanks so much for that deck list and for that comprehensive guide. Again, congratulations on not one but two top 32 placements in back-to-back weekends, and I will hope
Thank you
to
so
see you
much.
again.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Oh, sorry, one last thing. Do you have any shout outs?
Any shout outs? Shout out Car Merchant Christchurch. Wow, they got a free one because I couldn't think of anything on the spot. No, I don't have any more.
Well, shout out to Christchurch. All right, thank you
Yeah,
again.
no, shout out for Christchurch entirely. Actually, that's a really good one. We're coming up. We're gonna
Yeah.
be rivaling Auckland soon. We had Matt Robb
Oh, for sure.
top 8 a couple weeks ago,
Oh, yeah,
so
that's right.
we'll get
That's
there.
right. Well, we will see you in Auckland hopefully in the next regionals.
Yes, you
All
better
right,
watch
cool.
out.
Thank you
Thank
again.
you.